people who actually got married on and if we're both still single when we're 35, we'll get married deal. What's your story? Two of my friends have one of this. I hope they realize they are made for each other before then, though. Family friends had this pact. We were at her 30th and her boyfriend at the time proposed. Her best friend, with whom she had the pact, was gutted. He too had had a ring in his pocket. We know because he showed my dad. My partner and I were close friends for 12 years before we got married, through many friendships and relationships with other people, including one of us following a former lover across the country, and the other being briefly engaged. We stayed just friends for a very long time. On New Year's Eve in 2007-8, at the ripe old age of 23, we drunkenly made a pact to get married to each other if we weren't married by 30. Long story short, we didn't start dating until we both turned 30, but we got married pretty quickly after we started dating. Just celebrated 5 years of marriage, and we have a 2-year-old. It's unconventional, but so are we, and it's ours. Not exactly the same, but when I was 21, and he was 24, I said to my friend, "If we're not married by the time you're 30, do you want to get married?" He said no. Well, we started actually dating a couple months after, and this year, he will be 30 in May, and our wedding is planned for June *, pending COVID-19 lets us gather 30 people and travel within our country. My really good friend and I were joking about this in our early 20s, and I got an idea how she really felt about me when she said, "Yeah, if we're both single at 70, let's get married." Weird couple my wife knew had such a pact and followed through. Girl was a really introverted, quiet, homely type, sweetest girl, but she never had a boyfriend as far as I knew, and we saw her off and on for 6 or 7 years. Then suddenly out of nowhere, she invited us to her wedding. Anyways, it was to a guy we had met a couple of times, who was one of her friends who seemed very much like her. My wife teased her that more must have been going on all that time, but she was straight up about it, and said no. They just decided it was time. Conversation was something like, "Yeah, you know how people have pacts to get married if neither of them are, till they hit _____. Well, we just decided it really wasn't going to happen for either of us, and to cut that short, basically we were just like, cool, and then left it at that." Anyways, she married him, they looked happy, the speeches were a bit odd. They didn't really talk about love, but a lot about how they were marrying their best friend. They are still together, it's gotta be at least 5 years, and they have a little kid. Last we saw them they looked happy, and that's all that matters really. Obligatory not me but a friend, disclaimer. She married a college friend 3 years ago at the age of 33. Their bet was to get married if they're both single at 33, and the intention was to basically prank their parents by going through with it. They intended to be married for several months, and then just casually mention it, and later just get it annulled. So they went to the courthouse with a pair of friends, got married, and then she moved into his apartment. Thing was they'd been friends with benefits for years when they were both single, and living together was so nice that they just stayed together. They're expecting their first kid in a few months. If we are still married when we are 36, we'll get a divorce. One of my friends from high school had a deal with this with her high school boyfriend. Thus, when they turned 30, they had a baby together. Unfortunately, she was also a drug addict and ended up committing a felony, going to prison, and I'm pretty sure the kid is with him. And even though she's out of prison now, she can't have her daughter with her at whatever housing she is at. Do not recommend. A co-worker of mine up and left his girlfriend, who was also working there, of 6 years to move from Alaska to Florida, to go through with the pact he made with the other girl in high school. I honestly don't know how they're doing. The ex, however, lost a 185-pound stressor, so I'm glad she's doing exceptionally well. Our promise wasn't for when we're 35 but 30. We have been friends for years before we made the joke. promise, and have been friends for 11 years. Became friends when I was 17, she was 16. Through many friendships and relationships with other people, including one of us almost getting engaged to a former lover, we still remain friends. When I clocked 20, if I recall correctly, we jokingly promised to get married to each other if we weren't married by 30. Long story short, I'm 28 now and she's 26. We didn't start dating until last year and are supposed to be getting married in June. If coronavirus lockdown lets us, we went through a lot of maturity and personal changes in our early 20s, and it was so admirable watching how she grew and became woke. Over the course of 5 years watching her grow, I knew she was and still is the one. No regrets here. Edit. Woke, not woke. I did, but we got married 10 years earlier. We met at an Ink Master finale. We immediately connected. He lived in New York, I Florida. I went back home and we kept in touch. Made a promise if by the time we were 35, we'd marry each other. I was 25 at the time. Things intensified so much we truly believed we were meant for each other. I moved to Illinois to take care of my sick grandma. 3 months after meeting, he flew there to visit, and we got married. After a few more visits, he moved there too. 4 years later, and we have 2 kids. We ended up getting married a lot sooner. He wasn't necessarily waiting around for me, but I realized I'd be devastated if he ended up with someone else and no longer had him as a constant friend in my life. Don't let the good ones get away. We've been married 13 years now and never regretted a minute of it. I had that deal with a girl I was so in love with in HS or college. I, an idiot, lost touch and married someone else in my 20s. That went down in tremendous flames, and as far as I know, she was still single. We haven't talked for many years. Not the same but similar story. My favorite animal is an otter, and I'm slightly obsessed with them. I have otter blankets, pillowcases, mousepad, shirts, tattoo, etc. full stop. My best friend when I was younger lived about an hour away. We met at church camp when we were 7. But we kept in contact once we both got phones in 6th grade. Once 8th grade or so hit, I asked my best friend at the time if we ever got married in the future, "Would you let me have a pet otter?" She laughed about it and said sure. If we get married you can have a pet otter. Fast forward to today. We are engaged and I still plan on keeping her to her word. TL, Doctor asked my best friend in 8th grade if she would allow me to have a pet otter if we got married, and she agreed. We are now engaged, and I plan on having one still. Note: I would own one in the acts of conservation of the species, for those that cannot be rehabilitated. A friend and I had an agreement we'd marry if we were both single, when he was 53, and I 49. Last year, I was the witness to his marriage, and signed their license. I was 47. 2 months later, he gets super nasty with me, and accused me of doing drugs. I was using CBD oil for pain. He's been nothing but nasty with me since, and I've cut ties with him. I now see how he was manipulative and mentally abusive about my mental and physical issues. I feel I dodged a bullet. Thankful and grateful it was her, and not me. I've no other single male friends to make such a pact with. Wish there was after reading some of these answers. Yeah, that's not a good idea. I agreed this with someone when I was 21 for when we were both 30. Actually, we ended up dating in real life for like a year at 25, and it was a complete and utter fucking disaster after the first 3 months. Turns out the reason she was still single was that she was that, while to everyone else she met, she was extremely sweet and caring. After 3 months into any relationship, she turned into a complete and utter neurotic psychopath. As in, probably diagnosably so, and relentlessly bullied everyone she had ever dated until either they dumped her or she dumped them. If she thought that would cause more emotional pain, it clicked when I got speaking to one of her exes, who had basically exactly the same experience, was happily married since 29, so wouldn't have come up anyway, but fucking hell, dodged a bullet there. I upfront told my husband when we started dating, I will want to get married and have kids at some point if this works out. I'm being honest, If you don't want that, let me know now, he said. I'm ready to see where this goes, and if we haven't killed each other in 3 years, let's do it, all the way through dating. And our first 3 years he kept saying, let me know if I ever do anything that annoyed you. Don't keep it to yourself, okay? So I kept waiting to find something. It never came. We never argued, never got bored, and always looked forward to what the future held for us. Our 3rd year came around, and we had already had little chat about if we wanted to get married. We had just moved into a new place, so I proposed. With an omelet. About 3 months later, I was pregnant. We were trying, and 6 months later we married. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary with our 10-month-old daughter. Everything is amazing. We've never felt so complete. Still not argued, still excited about our future, and still haven't found anything that annoys me about him. My wife and I had a pact like that for if we were 26 and single. This pact was from middle school, and we kinda went separate ways after high school and reconnected when we were almost 25. We both had feelings for each other and started to date and remembered our pact. But that's not what made us get married. We're extremely happy with each other and even work together every day. We can joke with each other and tell each other whatever is bothering us at that moment and work to figure out a solution. We are a pretty damn good team in life and at our job too. My husband and I met in high school. We promised each other if we weren't married by the time I turned 20, I know kinda young, we would get married. We started dating right before I turned 21, and have been married for almost 6 years. We just knew we were right for each other. Me and my lifelong friend. She's only 6 months older than me. Our parents were friends at the time of our births, but me and her, both 21 right now, have this pact for when we hit our 30s. Needless to say, she is in a very great relationship with my good friend, and am waiting for my time to meet someone. I met my fiancé study abroad, and we became very good friend. I would say best friend. We had a low-key relationship while we were there. We were young. We just make out and hold hands when our friends aren't around. We did it because both of us know that when the program ends, we will go back to our home country, and it wouldn't work if we date. I was jokingly say when we are 30 and single, let's get married. We stay friends over the years. Fast forward to 2018. I got out of a relationship and she was healing from her last relationship. We get reconnect and talk more over a few weeks. I bought up the pact we made 7 years back. Now, we are engaged and soon to be married. If I could wish for a perfect woman, it would be her. Edit. I made a mistake in the year. My fiancé read this, and she laughed. See, I made a mistake. She still loved me. I have a lot of female friends for some reason, and I've been told this a few times. Gonna break so many damn hearts at 40, lemma tell you. Still, I'm 28, so I got a while.